Hello everybody, welcome back to Unique Arts. I'm Costco Picasso, you can also call me Shannon. Today you're going to be today I will be demonstrating my true lack of knowledge on literature, obviously. This channel is not purely dedicated to literature, although I guess technically I consider myself part of BookTube. I've not made very many videos since I switched over to BookTube, but oh well, here we are. So as you can tell by the title, we're going to look at the 4chan's top 100 works of literature of all time. They update this list every year apparently, and this is the most recent edition. I think they made it about 2.5 weeks ago at the turn of the new year. A couple of disclaimers: I've never been on 4chan before, and I don't plan to go on 4chan ever, really. We're just going to look at the list, see what's up. I've glanced at a couple of their renditions of this, and it seems that they have definitely some good books on there. I don't know if I agree with all of them, but there are a lot of books, and a lot of them I actually haven't read. So, and some of them I haven't even really heard much about. Maybe I heard of the author or whatnot. So we're going to try to go pretty quick through this, maybe go a little bit slower once we get to the top 20, or if there's one that I particularly like. Lots of the ones that I haven't read, I'm pretty much just going to fly through it real quick. But if it's one you highly recommend, make sure to let me know, either because I would greatly appreciate it. Some of these are on my list that I haven't read, but my list is quite extensive, so if you recommend it getting bumped up because of your good word for it, then maybe I will. So we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. Okay, here we are. So we're starting off with a banger. The Industrial Sighting and Its Future, Theodore John Kaczynski, or Ted Kaczynski, if you don't know who that is, that's the Unabomber, so maybe I shouldn't say banger. I've actually not read this, and it's not on my list. I don't know if I ever care to read it. Brave New World, pretty well known. Never actually read it. I don't know if I really care to be honest, but maybe I'll get to it eventually. I don't think it's supposed to be like a long read or anything, but there we are. We're starting with lots of stuff I don't know. Oh, okay, I know this one. Madame Bovary. I have read it. I don't like it. I honestly did not enjoy it whatsoever. So maybe you disagree with that. Feel free to let me know if you think my opinion's dumb. I've not read this either. I actually kind of like classical works. Obviously, I've mostly read a lot of classical plays, but I know about this one. It's not actually on my list, so maybe one day. Walden. Never read Thoreau. Never really read any of the transcendentalist thinkers' works, although I know who they are, I guess, and I've thought about it for a while. It's just never really happened, I suppose. I might actually have a copy of Walden somewhere. Schopenhauer. Not really acquainted with this stuff, to be honest. This might be worth a read, but Ezra Pound, also don't really know. 93, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, great book, highly recommend it. Lots of these that I have read are relatively well known, but there are some books that are relatively well known that don't really deserve the time of day, like Twilight. I hope that doesn't offend you. It's not on this list, and it belongs nowhere near this list. But there are some well-known books, obviously, that have stood the test of time. Lots of these, obviously, this relatively not that old, But Frankenstein's a great book. If you haven't read it, highly recommend it. Mein Kampf. I've never read this, and I don't really have intentions to. I guess I could see historical importance as far as the writer. Like, the writer is very historically important, especially with very recent history. But I don't know. Maybe you've read it. Let me know. As I Lay Dying. So I have read this. It's been a while, though. Faulkner's good. I need to read more of him, and there's a couple more of his on this list, I believe. So The Tartar Steppe. So I've skimmed through this, and this is when I looked up. There's a few Italian authors on here that I really don't know much of anything about, and this one actually sounds really interesting. This one has essentially made it on my list because of that. American Psycho is a big meme. The film adaptation is. I've never read the book. Maybe I will one day. It's not really on my list either. Virginia Woolf, one of those people I need to read, but I never have. The Waves. She has one other here, I think, in a second. Canticle for Leibowitz, 87. Never read that one either. Les Mis. Never read it, technically. Victor Hugo is one of the best, great romantic authors, and obviously I think I, like most people, are quite acquainted with Les Mis. Epic of Gilgamesh. As far as those, ancient writings go, like mythological writings go, this is one that's never really interested me. Like, I would rather replace this with Beowulf or something, and Beowulf doesn't make this list, you know. So I don't know. The Lighthouse of the Virginia Woolf, haven't read it. Edmund Spencer, The Fairy Queen, haven't read it, but I need to read this. Yeah, I need to get to that. Dead Souls 82 by Gogol. This is a fantastic book. Highly recommend it. He's kind of a precursor to like those golden age of Russian authors. He influenced a lot of them. This is a very good book. I don't want to spoil it, but it's a fantastic book. Umberto Eco, I've never really, I know who he is, and The Name of the Rose is one that actually sounds kind of interesting, but I've never read any of his stuff, and none of them are really on any of my list either, so let me know if I should remedy that. Montaigne's essays, I don't know, don't really care. Henry Miller's Tropic Cancer, also never read it, don't care. Wuthering Heights, I don't ever plan on reading this. I've heard that it's not that good, to be honest. So maybe the people who have told me that are wrong. So maybe I will read it eventually, but not anytime soon. Catch-22, honestly, not interested. Like, I've heard mixed things about it, I guess, but I don't know. This one, Temple of the Golden Pavilion by Mishima. I think there's a couple more Mishima on here, and I know nothing about this author, or anything about these books. I've never heard of any of them. So let me know. Maybe 4chan just has no idea what they're talking about, but I don't know. Dubliners, James Joyce. So I've not read Dubliners. I've read very little of James Joyce, and he's one that I need to read. I need to definitely read more of. Who knows when I'm going to get to that. Beckett trilogy. I think Beckett's highly overrated. Perhaps worth reading a little bit of Beckett, because you can get an idea of like the absurd theater, but it's not very good, to be honest. Storm of Steel. No idea what this is. St. Augustine's Confessions, worth reading, especially if you are a Christian. I'm not just a Catholic. 71, the Bhagavad Gita. Never read it. Don't really plan to. 100 Years of Solitude. Heard of it. Not really on my list. I don't know. We'll get maybe. I read it. Orwell's 1984, number 69. Nice. In high school, it's been a while. I don't know. I guess it's okay. A lot of people like to tout this around in our contemporary environment, which maybe they're not wrong in some degrees, but I don't know. Lost Illusions by Balzac. So I'm sure that's a bit more nuanced when you pronounce it if you speak French. But it's a fantastic book, actually. It should be number 69, just because his last name too. But actually a great book. It was one that I rarely didn't know anything about, and I just bought a copy and read it, and it was fantastic. Highly recommend it. Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, of course, great. Deserves to be on this list. That's one thing is like I didn't sit down and think about where all these books deserve to be on the list. So like 6, just the fact that it makes the list sounds good to me in many regards. But oh well. On a Winter's Night, a Traveler. Yeah, I don't know anything about it. So it must be another Italian author, Calvino. Don't know anything about this one either. Or this one. I know this one and this one, the same author, 62, 63. I don't know if I'll ever read them. Steppenwolf sounds more interesting in my opinion, but we'll see. Picture of Dorian Gray. Oscar Wilde's kind of a weird guy. But I have a copy of this. I haven't read it, though. I'm sure I'll get to it. Gormenghast. Never heard of it, even. Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. James Joyce, of course. I kind of said I need to read more. Catcher in the Rye. I remember it being a good book, but like, does it deserve to be on the list? I don't know. They have it number 58 here. Cormac McCarthy. They have another one of his, spoiler, in the top 20. I've only read The Road by him, which was good. I don't know if I would consider it best books of all time. Maybe it would make a top 100 list. I don't know if it deserves to be top 20 or any of his books deserves top 20 or anything. The one in the top 20 I have not read, and I've not read this either. So let me know. Critique of Pure Reason. I don't know if you're going to put Kant. I feel like they just wanted to throw Kant on here. If you're going to put Kant on here, maybe this one. I don't know. Oh well, Kant's worth reading, though. He's very important as far as philosophy is concerned. So if you enjoy philosophy, you need to read Kant. He wrote about pretty much everything. So Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Idiot, number 55. This is one of my, perhaps, top 5 books of all time, personally. And they have it here at 55. So, I mean, at least it made the list, I guess. I think it deserves to be way higher. Absolutely phenomenal. I love Dostoevsky. There are a few more of his on this list as well. So, and I've read pretty much everything he's written. I don't really know anything about this, to be honest. so haven't read it. This is Goethe. Sorrows of the Young Werther. I've not read this one. I've not even read Faust, which will appear higher on this list. But if I'm gonna read Goethe, I'm gonna read Faust, and then if I really like it, maybe I'll get to something like this eventually. But Hobbit, absolutely fantastic, deserved. Number 52 is where they have it here. Faulkner, Absalom. So, again, with Faulkner, I need to read more of it. Count of Monte Cristo. I always thought, so we're in the top half now. I always thought Count of Monte Cristo was a good book, overrated, not one of the best books of all time. It's highly just entertaining, which is good. I mean, it's the fact that the entertainment still holds up, so, like, all these years later, I still don't know if it's, one of the best books of all time. Sound and the Fury, another Faulkner. Nabokov, he always seemed very pretentious to me. I've never read any of his stuff because of that, but maybe one of his best books of all time, his top 10 is one of his as well, and that's the one I'd be more likely to read, I guess, because it constantly ranks on such lists. Notes from the Underground, absolutely phenomenal. Quite a bit different compared to Dostoevsky's novels and whatnot. Pretty short too, 120 pages I think was the version I read. Definitely worth a read and a reread. Fantastic. This is more Mishima. I think we had another Mishima one lower, and we're getting a couple here pretty quick. I don't know anything about that author. Steinbeck's East of Eden, worth a read. It's good. Not my favorite, but it's good. See, there's another Mishima, Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea. Don't know anything about it. Another sea one, though. Hemingway, Old Man and Sea. Very good. Very short. I'm not a huge fan of Hemingway, but definitely worth a read. Probably deserves to be on this list, too. Trial by Kafka. I really like Kafka. I've pretty much read all of Kafka's stuff, too. Kind of just existential dread is the general idea I get from him. But I enjoy those books, even if I don't personally agree with lots a philosophy like that. And then I don't know anything. Metamorphosis by Kafka. This is probably my favorite one. Maybe his most famous. I don't know. Really short again. I don't know if Franz Kafka wrote anything really long, but it's number 40 there. Really good. And then 2 in a row we have this Knut Hamsun, Growth of the Soil and Hunger. I wonder if they're part of the same series or whatever. That seems like they could work hand in hand. I don't know anything about this author. Literally never heard of him before. So let me know. The Man Without Qualities, never heard of it. Elemental Particles, never heard of it. Richard Wagner's The Ring of the Nibelung. Great, of course. Should definitely read that. Probably deserves its spot too. Confederacy of Dunces, I don't know anything about this. The title sounds interesting. Almost worth a read just because of that, but I don't know. I also don't really know anything about this guy. I think he's got one more book on here. But you'll find that I like to read books, but I'm not well, I don't know if elitist is a good word. I'm not an English major. So, I don't know a bajillion different authors or anything like that. Bulgakov, I don't know who this is. Master and Margarita. I've heard of the book, though, actually. So, maybe. 2666, Bolaño. Never heard of that either. Plato's Republic. Definitely worth a read. Top 30 probably makes sense. Magic Mountain. Never heard of it. Pedro Poramo. Never heard of it. Gravity's Rainbow. It's the same author. Never heard of it. In the Search of Lost Time. Have heard of it. It's on my list. Never read it, though. By Marcel Proust. Probably can move it up. I don't know. I kind of like that they put something like this. I know The Hobbit was already on here, but Book of the New Sun, I've heard great things about. Not read it. It's actually on my list, but kind of like that we get stuff like this on these lists too. It's not just stuff like, oh, we got to read Proust and Goethe or whatever, and Plato. But, Gene Wolfe. Fyodor Dostoevsky, another Dostoevsky, so obviously if you can tell, I love Dostoevsky. Demons is probably my least favorite one of his that they have on this list. Still worth a read though. In fact, I personally I feel disappointed when I read other books that are way better and then I read not as good ones after. So maybe Demons is a good introduction, but then again, Crime and Punishment might still be a good introduction because I think they're neck and neck with quality. I would say Crime and Punishment's a bit better though, and it's probably his most famous, to be honest. Lots of people, if they've read any Dostoevsky, they've read Crime and Punishment. Book of Disquiet, don't really know anything about it. Infinite Jest, not really interested in reading it. I know it's a more relative recent one. I think came out in the 90s, but maybe. Let me know if I should reconsider that. Homer's The Odyssey, definitely worth a read. Fantastic. very, very old, of course. Top 21, not doesn't quite break in the top 20. So we're getting into the top 20 now. So we'll see how this goes. Camus' The Stranger. Camus okay. I kind of like some of the other more existentialist thought. Like Kafka's one of those, even though he's not really like a philosopher in many regards. But Camus is worth a read to a degree. My problem in many regards is I find existentialism quite interesting, but I prefer the more unofficial existentialism like Kierkegaard, much more positive, and I think that's because he's a theist, while lots of these other existentialists are very much not. And they're just depressing, which is very modern, very much today, but I think lots of that is just nonsense. Like, people don't need to be so depressed. Obviously, there's biological, chemical imbalances that do happen, but lots of it I think is just stupid, self-loathing. Lord of the Rings, obviously fantastic. I actually have never read Lord of the Rings. I'm halfway through The Fellowship right now, in the middle of reading it, where I guess kind of just started. I pretty much know what happens, so I've watched films a lot. My brother has told me lots of the differences in the books and the films. Absolutely phenomenal. Definitely deserves to be top 20. I don't know about top 10. Maybe. I feel like there could definitely be a case for that. But you have to see what else is going on, I guess, to see what they're comparing it to. Paradise Lost, absolutely phenomenal. Definitely have to read John Milton. Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Definitely worth reading. He's kind of one of those more nihilist, kind of existentialist guys too. Worth reading. Just don't take them too seriously, because then your whole 15-year-old personality becomes fixated on it, and you think you're smart, but you're an idiot. Which is kind of how I would describe Nietzsche, although I enjoy his work. That's the problem too. It's like lots of those guys who I feel like a lot of people have this problem when they read more philosophical stuff, is you don't have to agree with the person when you're reading it. In fact, but you can also agree to a degree. Lots of times people think it's like all or nothing, when it's not. You don't have to agree 100% with what they say, and you don't have to agree you don't have to abandon it forthright, That you can learn some stuff still, right? The Divine Comedy, definitely fantastic. Inferno's definitely the best of the three, but definitely worth reading, absolutely. This is one of the two in the top 20 that I really didn't know much of anything about. It sounds interesting when I looked it up, so I don't know, let me know, please. War and Peace by Tolstoy. So Dostoevsky gets more books in this list, and they both have two in the top 20. War and Peace I've never read, so I can't say. It's been on my list for quite some time. It's just kind of long, and the other Tolstoy stuff I've read I like, but I'm not a huge fan, if that makes sense. So I'll get to it eventually. Goethe's Faust, I already said I haven't read Goethe, but this is definitely on my list. It has been for a while. This is a Tolstoy I have read, Anna Karenina. It's good. It's not as long. This one's about 800 pages compared to War and Peace, like 1,200. It's good, but it's like Dostoevsky does so much more for me, in my opinion. Maybe you're different. I've heard it described, and I think that's pretty accurate, that Tolstoy is more of like the sociologist writing, and Dostoevsky's more of the psychologist. And I definitely prefer the Dostoevsky stuff. And again, here we go, Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment. Fantastic book. This is the translations I've always personally recommend, because that's what I like. A lot of people like more modern translations, though, but Constance Garnett is my go-to. Okay, we are into the top 10, and we're starting with the James Joyce Ulysses. I've heard fantastic things about it. I've heard a lot of people hate it. Whatever. I haven't read it. I don't even have a copy. Maybe there's a copy you recommend too. I like pretty books. But it's on my list, so I'll get to it eventually. I heard it's not the easiest read. The Iliad, top 10. I feel like maybe the Odyssey should be top 20 and not just outside of it. But the Iliad's definitely better in my opinion. I don't feel like it has as famous of a name compared to people who aren't acquainted with, like, just among the general populace, generally speaking. But the Iliad is much better in my opinion. This is the Nabokov in the top 10. Lolita, his most famous, definitely. I've heard it constantly ranks in high spots in these lists, but I don't know. Nabokov, like from what I know about him, is he seems like a moron. So I don't know. Do I want to read his stuff? I mean, just because Mein Kampf is on this list, so I don't know. But Shakespeare's First Folio, number 7. Shakespeare is definitely worth reading. If you speak the English language and you haven't read Shakespeare, then you probably don't deserve to speak the English language. Number 6 is John William Stoner. William Stoner is the main character. This is one the other one I didn't really know anything about. I looked it up. Sounds modern. It sounds interesting enough. I don't know if I'll ever read it. It didn't make me add it to my list or anything, but whatever. Maybe it's good. Let me know if you think it deserves to be top 10. Lots of this is, of course, going to be relatively subjective. So let me know if it's like a crime against humanity to put this here. This is the other one I'm skeptical about. Blood Meridian. I checked actually last year. I think it was there. They had it number 25, and this year they put it in the top 5. Seems a bit of a stretch to me because, like I said, The Road seems good, but I've never read this one, so I can't really say. But although Cormac McCarthy's good, does he deserve to be in the top 10? Some people were saying he died recently, I guess, so maybe they're just... I thought he died a couple years ago. I don't know. But I don't... So maybe that's why the votes pushed it up, but you let me know. Because even though I've heard that... Like, my brother actually released a video on this today. I'm re-recording this. But it's good. But is it the 5th best book of best work of literature of all time? You tell me. Don Quixote, not read it cover to cover, that is, by Cervantes. Constantly ranks in these lists around here as well, so I'm assuming it's good, and I'll get to reading it cover to cover one day, I'm sure. Holy Bible, as far as historical importance, yeah, I could see it being top 3, probably top number 1 if we were doing it based off historical importance, but I've known 4chan to be a godless place, so I'm a little surprised they put it here. But either way, the Bible's good. I've read it a couple times. Brothers Karamazov. This is my number 1. So in fact, I don't think the list be that bad if they almost got it right. Brothers Karamazov should be the number 1 book of all time, and they put it number 2. Absolutely phenomenal. This is Dostoevsky again. This is his best work. We got robbed of the trilogy it was supposed to be because he passed away, but phenomenal. It's about 3 brothers, as you can kind of see here. Ivan and Alyosha are the 2 main ones, really, but yeah, absolutely a work of art. Number 1 is Moby Dick. I've never read it, so it constantly ranks high in lists like this too. I've kind of heard a lot of people say they love it or hate it. I think lots of the hate might be they've had to read it in high school or whatever, and it just wasn't up their alley, in their wheelhouse or whatever. But I don't know. You let me know. But that's the list. Trying to make it relatively short. We're about 24 minutes now. Let me know if you think the list was okay. If lots of these books, because obviously I haven't read a lot of them, if you think that some of them I really need to read, if there's one on here that is absolutely your favorite, if you think like some of them got snubbed, like there's one that should have been ranked way higher, or maybe didn't even make the list, and vice versa, if you think there was one that was like Moby Dick's trash or something, like why is it here, or Blood Meridian doesn't deserve to be top 5, or Lolita Nabokov's poopy. So let me know, or like some of them just should not have been on the list, let alone top 10 or top 20. Just let me know. Yeah, I would love to hear your feedback, love to see what you guys think of it. You got a general idea of what I've read, so, and I tend to mention the ones that are on my list, so the ones I tend to read as well. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Please feel free to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And hopefully stuff like this content, spending 25 minutes just looking at a list of books, isn't the worst in the world.